I made this animated bullet hole completely from scratch. How? Well, open Blender, any version you like. Mine comes without the default cube. I switched to Eevee to render this faster and enable transparency under film for the alpha pass. Create a plane. Snap the camera to focus on the plane. In the Shade Editor, create a new material. Name it whatever you like. Add in a UV coordinate and shift it by 0.5 on the X and Y axes to bring the center to 0, 0. Add in a vector length node followed by a multiply node set to 2. This is to scale the length values between 0 and 1. Add in a float curve node and edit it to control the spread of the impact. Now, to the subtract node at the start, add in a connection to a Voronoi node and connect that to another float curve and invert it. Change the Voronoi feature to distance to edge. Add in a greater than node and plug in the spread float curve to the top slot and the Voronoi float curve to the bottom slot. If you set your Voronoi texture to 4D, you have an infinite number of unique bullet holes for every W. Now, plug in the float curves to a divide node and plug that into a greater than node. This is to control the glowing center. Add in a mix shader node and plug a transparent shader with the color set to white into the bottom slot. And plug in another mix shader into the top slot. Into the second mix shader, plug in a transparent shader with the color set to black and an emission into the top slot. Connect the first greater than node into the first mix shader and the second one into the second. Now, animate the glowing part as you want it using the second greater than node. Now for the black part to vanish, you can do it either by making it shrink by adding a multiply node before the first greater than node, or just by keyframing the color of the second transparent node. I'll be going with option 2 for this example, though both would work just fine. Render the frames out as a PNG sequence with transparency. Once your frames are rendered and saved into a folder, open Slate Editor. If you don't have it, get it. It's a completely free and awesome tool for VFX in games, and shout out to Mr. Simon Trumpler who mentioned it in a GDC talk. Inside Slate Editor, on the top left, click on the file and then New from Folder and select the folder with your image sequence in it. Once imported, on the right side, select the path and format in which you want to save your file and click on Render Layers to export your file. The exported file should look something like this. This is called a flipbook. Now open your Unreal project. I'll use the default FPS template just to show you the implementation. I'm going to open the projectile blueprint and delete all of this because it doesn't matter for the purposes of this video. Within the projectile blueprint, add in a spawn decal attach node followed by a set fadeout node and use the destroy actor checkbox based on your needs. Plug the other comp socket from the event hit to the attach on socket of the spawn decal and set the scale to whatever you like. Attach the hit location to the location on the decal node. Take the hit normal and connect it to a get rotator from X node and split both that and the rotator on the decal node. Add in a random rotator, split it and enable roll. Plug in the X from the random rotator and the Y and Z from the rotator from X into the decal function. This will randomly rotate the vector and add more variation. Now, add in a float for the lifetime of the decal and plug it into the lifespan of the decal function and the duration of the set fadeout node. Set the location type of the decal node to keep world offset. Drag in your flipbook image and create a material. In the material settings, change the material domain to deferred decal and the blend mode to translucent. Connect the RGB into the base color and emission and the alpha into the opacity. Set your view object to plane for a better understanding of what the decal will look like. Multiply the RGB that's going into the emission to make it glow. Then add in a flipbook node and connect the UV sockets. Plug a texture coordinate into the UV of the flipbook and scalars into the number of rows and columns. The number of rows and columns refers to your flipbook. Now to animate it, add in a decal lifetime opacity node, which goes from 1 to 0 controlled by the set fadeout node in the projectile blueprint. So connect it to a 1- node and plug that into the animation phase of the flipbook node. And boom, you have an animated bullet hole. Thanks for watching and peace.